Hello, friends. Today's chapter of the day is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 7. And as you know, what's happening in Nehemiah chapter 7 is they have just completed the building of the walls. This great accomplishment. The city is now secure. They now have security and some independence so they can worship in peace and confidence. And this is a big deal because they've been working against oppression. They've been in exile. All of these things have happened that have made this moment seem impossible. Yet somehow there they are, and the walls are complete. And what we see are some really interesting next steps from Nehemiah. And here's the first thing. After the walls had been rebuilt. So first thing that he does after the walls have been rebuilt in verse 1. The gatekeepers, the musicians, and the Levites were appointed. So what does Nehemiah do? Once the walls are built, once they're secure, he remembers the point of building the walls. And the point was to worship God. And he got right to the business of worshiping God. He got all the people in place that were going to be necessary to do that. So the place was physically ready. Now he wanted to make sure it was spiritually ready. And then the next thing Nehemiah does, what a statement of character this is, he immediately puts someone else in charge. So as you remember, back in Nehemiah chapter 1, it was Nehemiah's brother who had reached out to Nehemiah and made him aware of the problems in Jerusalem. The walls, the crumbling condition, all the problems. And Nehemiah then goes, speaks to the king and gets everything in motion and eventually oversees the rebuilding of the walls. Well, now Nehemiah is saying, my job is done. And I'm handing this back over to you because you're the one who was there. You were the boots on the ground before I was. You are a man of integrity and you're going to lead. And what does it say about his brother? He said he was qualified to lead because he was a man of integrity and he feared God more than most people do. Now, when we think about it, when we think about the way we look for leaders in the church, in government, in our families, it seems like we have a lot more complicated reasoning about how we do that. But this really boils it down. Is this a man of integrity? Is it a man that fears God more than most? That's what Nehemiah looked for, and that's why he was willing and eager to turn over governance of this rebuilt Jerusalem to his brother. Nehemiah wasn't going to try to ride his popularity and his accomplishments to the next level of political office so that he could gain power. He had done what he set out to do, and now he was going to put it in the hands of his brother, the man who had been there to take things forward. And then the last thing we see in Nehemiah chapter 7, which is a little bit burdensome to read through, is this list of the people who came up from the captivity and returned and rebuilt the city. And you might think, why? Who cares? And not only do we see it here, we actually see it in Ezra as well. And the reason that we see it is because these people were by far in the minority. You think about the population of Israel at the time of King David's reign. It's about 2 million people. This is about 40,000, about 2% of those people who are returning to rebuild the city that they loved so they could worship God in the city that he had given them. And God is recording that in Scripture through Ezra and Nehemiah to point out that them putting themselves out there, that them stepping out in faith is a big deal. It wasn't politically popular, it wasn't comfortable, and it wasn't assured from a worldly sense. But these people trusted in God and did what he intended for them to do. And he was recognizing them for doing that. And not only did they show up, but they gave too. And God is recognizing that as well. As we get to the last verses about, verse 70 through 72, who gave what and how rich the treasury was as a result of the people's generosity. So that's what's going on in Nehemiah chapter 7. The physical structure has been built. Now we got to make sure that the spiritual structure is in place. And the people that have extended themselves for the glory of God are being recognized so that others are encouraged to do the same thing. And then in the very last verse, we get our lead into what's going to happen in chapter 8, which is Ezra reading the law to the people. Because all of this is setting up this better relationship, this improved, purified relationship between the people and their God. And they're going to wisely, at this point, return to the law to find His will and that connection with Him that had been missing for all those years of exile in Babylon. So that's chapter 7. Hope this was helpful. Have a great day and God bless.